you built an entire community based off of veganism and the vegan community, and you went ex-vegan technically behind camera with the 3 eggs. You didn't say anything about it until months later. I know you think that that was okay, but I'm just going to list everything here. Then you started to follow the vegan lifestyle again, and then you went ex-vegan again. But this time, not only did you go ex-vegan, but you said you wanted to start hunting. You wanted to start having backyard eggs, which you ended up doing. And then you eventually did a collab with Anti-Vegan, Primal Edge Health, and Paul Saladino, which you just mentioned. I'm not sure if he's anti-vegan, but he is a carnivore diet advocate. Now, I just want to ask you, after hearing all of that, do you understand how set apart you are from most other ex-vegans, given all of that history?
Okay, yeah, laugh about it. Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know the whole story about what happened with Jon Venus, there it is. What's up, guys? We are back with another one. And in this video, I wanted to talk about an interview that Lifting Vegan Logic did with ex-vegan turned vegan, again, allegedly, Jon Venus. And it's a super interesting interview, and I just want to go over some of it and talk about certain things that he said. And I think that Lifting Vegan Logic did a really good job with this, so let's get right into it.
What's up, John? Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is a little weird given our history. People probably think something like this would never happen, but yeah, it's cool.
Well, you know, everything happens for a reason, I believe. So, you know, I'm excited to be here.
I don't know about that one, but I hope that this is for a good reason, and I hope that him being vegan, not really, vegan is what he said, again, is actually something that will help the animals rather than what he was doing before.
Your friend Catherine is pretty hot, so just to get started on the right note here.
Yeah, the first question was going to be if you would enter a polyamorous relationship with her. I don't know if the real Catherine would be okay with that, but
is he available?
I think he's available. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, tell him to DM me.
All right, he'll DM you.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so just want to say before we get into the questions, I did get a lot of crap from some of my subscribers for doing this. Some people think that I'm just all in accepting whatever John has to say is true, and that I'm pandering to his nonsense. That's how they word it. Like, oh, I can't believe you're pandering to his nonsense. I just want to say that I'm just doing this because John has admitted to me that he's not the best at articulating, and I want to push him on certain things and see if we can get the absolute truth here. It's up to you if you believe what he has to say. I'm not even sure if I believe what he has to say, but I'm still open to hearing what he has to say.
So yeah, nobody should give Lifting Vegan Logic shit for hearing Jon Venus out. That's just stupid because, like, enough with the cancel culture and all this shit. Like, I understand if you don't ever want to watch Jon Venus's channel again. I unsubscribed. I don't intend to unless I make a video on his stuff or something. And I didn't even make any videos prior to this on Jon Venus because I didn't want to give him attention. But if he is trying to be vegan again, then let's at least give him the opportunity to not go against veganism, because that only hurts the animals. Even though we don't need to consider him vegan at all, but let him be plant-based, let him advocate a plant-based lifestyle, and leave it at that. You don't ever have to watch his stuff again. Clearly, it's a good idea to, you know, allow him to spread the plant-based message rather than a carnist message about hunting.
This was kind of how it all started when you said that you were no longer identifying as a vegan, but you were still going to practice the vegan lifestyle. So could you just explain your thought process in doing that?
Yeah, so that was, I'm assuming, around 2 years ago, right, at this point. So at that time, I think what got me to make that video was seeing a lot of the hates people I knew were getting, kind of similar to what I ended up going through, right? Where a lot of people were throwing them under the bus, especially influencers and that kind of stuff, without knowing the full story, without having met them in person, etc. And I don't know, I was just going through a very frustrated period of my life, and obviously with the back injury, it was pretty bad. So I was in a bad mood, and I made a video. It was I think I've explained this before, but it was one of the most spontaneous, like most of my dramatic videos, and that goes into the PR kind of stuff that we can talk about later. But most of my videos are very unscripted. I just hit the record button, try to edit, as quickly as possible, and post it without thinking about anything, just for authenticity's sake, which is not always the best idea, especially when talking about topics and sensitive topics and these things, right?
I watched this video back then when it came out, and I was just kind of floored with how ridiculous it was. But when this video came out, I basically knew that he was plant-based mostly. Like, he didn't really care that much about the vegan movement. Looking back, it was like, oh yeah, like a vegan wouldn't make this kind of video at all. So that's not really a good sign for him being on the side of vegans. But I was questioning whether he was vegan or not at the time too. Turns out he didn't care that much about the ethics.
Right. So just because I say, that hunting has been a practice for thousands of years, it doesn't mean that I mean that is an argument against veganism, right? So, but I do get it, and I wasn't trying to make an argument for in that sense. That would be, I think I could do a little bit better than that if I tried. But
yeah, that's funny. So I guess he was just making a descriptive claim and not a justification here. So that actually was interesting because I was really wondering that myself. So that kind of makes a little bit of sense. And it's just, that's why this interview is so fascinating.
I don't know, man. Like, to be honest, a lot of these videos, I just hit the record button. I'm a terrible YouTuber. I need to work on that.
So people wanted to know what is happening with the backyard chickens.
Right. So they're still there, in my wife's parents' house, where it's their chickens essentially. So they're just chilling, I guess. They're still young, so like they haven't started hatching eggs or anything like that. So they're happy and healthy, and that's all that matters.
Okay. Do you think they have any plans to slaughter them? And I'm not gonna. If they do,
I don't want to.
Yeah, you don't have to. I mean,
I don't want to. I like, there is no plans at all. But it's not our, like, they're not our chickens. It's not our house. It's not our home. So we don't really have much control over that situation.
Right. Yeah. Just to be clear to people watching, if they do, you can't really put that on Jon because they're not his.
Whoa. I don't know. I feel like you probably could put that on Jon, and they're not his and they're not anyone's because they are sentient beings and they don't belong to anybody. But I get where he's coming from, of course. Like, people view them as property now. I don't know if they were Jon's to begin with and then he let them have them after he went vegan again, or if they were borrowing them. I can't remember. But that's actually one of the main reasons that I made this video, because I'm like, I feel bad. I'm like, now I'm hearing about these chickens that it sounds like they probably will be slaughtered. He doesn't sound very convincing at all, and saying, oh yeah, they're good, they're safe. Like, he's like, there's no plans for them at all. Like, what the hell does that mean? So I feel like any vegan who's watching this, we should ask Jon, like, for real, the very least that Jon could do is, like, make sure his family doesn't murder these chickens. Like, the very least, to make up for everything that he's done and how badly he hurt the movement and becoming a carnist for a few months. Like, I just think that that would actually be really cool if that could happen, so those chickens don't get screwed over. And, you know, that's their one and only life. So I hope that we can make sure that they're safe.
So yeah, that was just a video of me explaining how I thought it was so horrible what I was seeing out there of so many, because I was getting messages from non-vegans saying that, you know, these people who are being you know, called out and being and put on kind of like the spot for leaving veganism, these non-vegan people that were seeing this were terrified of veganism because of it. And I was seeing a lot of people react that way. So for me, you know, that pissed me off, and I wanted to make a video just telling people, like, you know, the main mission here is not, you know, what's right or wrong or whatever. The main mission here is efficiency in, you know, what we're trying to achieve, which is, like, you know, peace and you know, safety for all living beings and animals and these things, right? So I was just this, like...
So veganism isn't about peace and safety for all living beings. It's about the animals, specifically non-human animals. Now, I understand if anybody wants to kind of take it to be about helping human beings, but that's not really what it's about. And there's, you know, so many different other terms for people that help human beings out. I wouldn't consider it necessarily to be a part of veganism, mainly because animal organizations, as I've said in the past, have limited resources, and so they shouldn't really be focused on people, because the resources for groups that focus on people are astounding, because, you know, humans care a lot about themselves.
And I do remember now this one sentence that these words that I used, that was "I don't care." I think it was "I don't care about if someone is watching Earthlings and eating a hamburger at the same time," or something along those lines. You know, I said that.
Yeah, that's something a vegan just doesn't even think to say. Like, if you have a vegan mindset, I'm not like trying to gatekeep veganism, but I'm just saying, like, if you're a vegan, that isn't even something that, like, crosses your mind to say. Like, that wouldn't be in your mind if you care about the animals.
That got a lot of criticism, which is 100% understandable, right? But it's one of those things where you say things that you don't really mean, but then you get in trouble for not providing enough context and not really thinking things through properly.
Now, I think maybe he didn't mean that. I mean, he might have meant it in the heat of the moment, like rage, but I think that it's definitely possible that he didn't mean that. Yeah, I think that Jon doesn't care that much about the animals, but I also think that he might have been caught up in the heat of the moment here, so I wouldn't judge him on that moment, but I would judge him on the rest of his history.
So you thought that consuming eggs for yourself would make you more convinced that your son would be healthy on a vegan diet? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that was the mindset at the time, yeah. Which is like, obviously that's not how you get the...
You understand how that doesn't follow.
Obviously, of course.
Right,
yes,
right,
of course.
Okay.
Okay, so I remember this time period where he actually had a debate and talk with Vegan Gains about this, and it was pretty heated, and it's kind of funny because at the time I thought Vegan Gains was being way too harsh on him, and I'm like, okay, so he tried the eggs, which is hella messed up, but he had like 2 or 3 eggs. He made a mistake. People make mistakes. I know that goes to the animal agriculture industry, so it's pretty terrible. But at the same time, he admitted it was a mistake. And I was like, okay, well, he admitted it was a mistake, and he still wants to be vegan. So, like, how are you going to get that upset at him? I mean, I would get upset, but, you know, he's moving forward in the right direction, which is kind of what matters. And I'm just like, okay, he made a mistake.
But I think, you know, when when you operate out of fear, I think you do a lot of things that don't make sense. I think that's normal for everyone.
Yeah, it's hard to behave reasonably when you're in a fearful state. Yeah.
And I 100% agree with this. I don't know if John was in a fearful state, but it's somewhat believable.
Like it was a bullshit experiment. Like you don't find anything out by eating 3 eggs, right? I mean, I knew that. I just, who the fuck knows what you get up to when you're in these weird states of mind. I think a lot of people can relate to that. I could have not said anything and would, people would hate me less for it. But I prefer, sharing my journey authentically as I'm going through it. Maybe not in a real time, but I still try to share everything for the better or worse. A lot of times for the worse. But
I will say that, Jon Venus didn't have to share that information, so I do understand where he's coming from there about being honest. So yeah, he was definitely honest about it. And I almost think and wonder, like, if somebody were a vegan and then they did something like John did and had eggs or an animal product, I almost think that, assuming they're going to stay vegan in the future, I almost think it's worse to even talk about it online because you're just representing the movement poorly and making vegans look bad, and that ultimately harms the animals, and more animals probably get killed because of that.
Yeah, see, I would say, like, I understand the whole family unit thing, and I'm just imagining in a hypothetical that, let's say I had a kid that just required animal products, but I ethically was against supporting a holocaust of animals when I didn't need to. I personally would drop this whole unit mentality and say, okay, for my kid to not die, I'm going to have to feed them some amount of animal products, but I'm going to continue to be vegan because I'm still against paying for an animal holocaust when there isn't a need to do so.
That is how a vegan thinks about things. Like, that's, like, definitive. That is, even if a vegan had to, for some reason, feed their child animal products to make sure they survive, because survival is a different situation than the situation that most people are in, then that would mean that you could still minimize that as much as possible, and that's what a vegan would do. Even if like a vegan, if there were such a thing as a rare disease where you have to eat some dead animals, like a vegan would be like, okay, well, I will eat animals that died of natural causes. Or if you had to just eat straight 100% animals or something, then you would minimize that as much as humanly possible, because that is the vegan philosophy.
So, I think everyone thinks differently and have different points of view.
How about scientific reason, like reason based in science? For you as an adult to start eating animal products, like you didn't really have that. We could say
no,
that.
I never claimed to have that either. Right. Yeah, for sure, 100.
What? Never claimed to have that? Oh my goodness, there are a lot of videos where John claims to have the science or have heard things that were bad about veganism.
And looking at the science for, children especially, because this is the reason why I started questioning everything, there is extremely little science, and I am not convinced at all by the science that is used to support those claims.
But now he doesn't have it magically.
100%. It was never about that. I agree with the perspective. Like, I think it would be a lot better for me to do that, but it's not like when you say like this is what you should have done, I'm like, yeah, it would have been a lot better for many things, but also for me personally as a human to overcome the things that I need to overcome to go through what I need to go through. For me, that was a path that I took, and maybe it was worse than the other path, but that's what happened. And I feel like we shouldn't be so hard on which path we end up taking and judge ourselves or each other so much, because at the end of the day, we all have to go through different paths and avenues to learn different things about others and ourselves. Yeah. And there is no, right or wrong way to do anything.
No right or wrong way to do anything. Well, maybe in objective sense outside of, like human reason and human morality, maybe. But as far as what we're trying to create, the society we want, there's clearly stuff that is right and wrong in respect to what is going to lead us to a society that is just and fair to all sentient beings. What he was doing on his journey really does matter to anyone who's vegan, because you are supporting killing animals needlessly, and that isn't okay at all. So of course, I understand that people make mistakes. But you made a lot of mistakes, John, and it does matter, because actual animals died because of those mistakes. You think that they didn't care when they were being killed?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's sort of like a subjective thing. I have a sense of right and wrong, which is based in my subjective ethics. But yeah, listen, I'm just trying my best to understand where you were psychologically. I'm pretty into psychology, and I'm trying to understand your qualia or like subjective experience that led you to these things, while still letting you know, outside of your emotional distortion that was happening in those moments, what you should have done according to me and according to what I think a vegan would do, like who has vegan principles.
So here, I guess lifting vegan logic let him off the hook a little bit, but I respect his style here, because he's having a respectful interview, and conducting himself like this will make it more likely that other people with differing beliefs and who have different ways of looking at things will actually, talk with him and do interviews like this with him on the channel, which I think is really good for everyone to hear different perspectives on the issues, regardless of what anyone believes. So I respect the way that he conducted this interview overall, and I thought he did it really good, actually. And I was actually surprised. I was like, oh yeah, this is like some professional newscasting right here.
I don't really see like any issues with how Dr. Avi and Richard, for example, did debunk Ornish or Esselstyn or whatever. I think that's a good thing for vegans and non-vegans to criticize and be objective about what we're promoting out there. And I actually made a video with, I think I was invited on Paul Saladino's podcast, and we essentially went over the same studies, and I don't know if the same things were said or whatever, but it's cool that people are willing to be more objective, and that's all I wanted. I just wanted to be more objective and say things as they were, and not just sugarcoat things and promote things falsely.
So yeah, this is a really good point. Dr. Avi is awesome. And Vegan Gains is super cool for letting Dr. Avi on his channel to talk about different health topics. And I just think it's incredibly important to make sure that we, criticize our own beliefs, and we are able to critical think about vegan health claims and anything that we hear where there's counter evidence. We need to take that.
You built an entire community based off of veganism and the vegan community, and you went ex-vegan technically behind camera with the 3 eggs. You didn't say anything about it until months later. I know you think that was okay, but I'm just going to list everything here. Then you started to follow the vegan lifestyle again, and then you went ex-vegan again. But this time, not only did you go ex-vegan, but you said you wanted to start hunting. You wanted to start having backyard eggs, which you ended up doing. And then you eventually did a collab with Anti-Vegan, Primal Edge Health, and Paul Saladino, which you just mentioned. I'm not sure if he's anti-vegan, but he is a carnivore diet advocate. Now, I just want to ask you, after hearing all of that, do you understand how set apart you are from most other ex-vegans, given all of that history?
Okay, yeah, laugh about it. So for anybody who doesn't know the whole story about what happened with Jon Venus, there it is. And perhaps that's just a nervous laugh, but I don't think that that's really something to laugh about.
Yes.
Okay.
That sounds pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
You love it.
I love it and hate it at the same time. But
Right.
yeah,
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Not really.
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And do you understand why the
Is that like a Freudian slip or something?
things I just listed are pretty big fuel for the way the vegan community reacted to you coming out as ex-vegan?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I just so you guys know, when I talked to John over the phone about this, he acknowledged that he understands and basically thought most of the reactions were pretty reasonable.
For those who don't know, like I went vegan for ethical reasons almost 6 years ago, and that's the only reason. I've never been vegan for health or taken my health that seriously, to be honest.
That sounds like a bunch of bullshit. And, in his videos, he's like, I just want to optimize my health.
Like I just said, I've always believed that it's unnecessary for health, and now I've changed my position on that. I think it is necessary for most people, if not everyone, to consume animal products.
So, no, I don't think that is the case at all. And, I wonder why John even really did go vegan in the first place. My bet would be he wanted attention or something. I really don't know. Maybe he probably did care about the animals on some level, but I guess we may never know, but I think that we can surmise with some accuracy.
Which I think everyone should, but I've never been prioritize it or a person to prioritize health. So ethics has always been the reason to be vegan and to go vegan, right? So with that in mind, you learn to set yourself in.
He sounds like he was studying for a test. Ethics is the reason that you want to go vegan, and so ridiculous.
The animal's shoe, you learn to practice empathy and compassion, just like try.
Yeah, I think that John really needs to practice those things.
Try to experience and relive their lives in their shoes, right, so to speak. So once you do that, you have an understanding, right, and you have new values and core principles to follow.
Yes, you're right here. I'm super skeptical watching him because I'm it definitely doesn't sound super sincere, and I can't really read body language and stuff like some people probably can, but that's what I saw.
Especially if you connect to those animals, and once you do that, I don't think that can be broken. So when I went non-vegan, for me, the most important thing was to do my best to still stay true to the principle of less harm, right? To do it the best way possible. And obviously I didn't want to, buy any animal products from supermarkets.
The best way possible was to just stay vegan. It's like if you wanted to get certain nutrients, then you could have supplemented them or you could have eaten them.
I think because fish are a little bit more different than mammals and to us humans, it's not as difficult to disassociate from them, and to actually fish is much milder than to go out there hunting, right? So in my idea, I wanted to go fishing first, but that was not an option because if you look at the mercury, the PCB, and the microplastic levels, it's absolutely horrible. It's just not something that is safe anymore for any human to eat, I don't think.
Yeah, hear that, non-vegans? There's a lot of good reasons not to eat fish. PCBs is one, mercury. There's different bacterial contaminations you can get. And there's more bad stuff than that, too, if you look into it. So just a good thing to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing was just, game meat, like deer and that kind of stuff. And I wasn't really ever thinking about eating mammals or anything like that, but I thought that was the only way that I could achieve my goal, which was to get animal products without supporting the animal industry and without sacrificing, our health by poisoning ourselves with heavy metals, etc. So the hunting thing was just something that that came natural because we grew up, or me and Catherine were from a village in Norway that all they do is hunt and fish. So
that's interesting. I actually didn't know that, and I can I don't really know what it's like to grow up in that environment with hunting and stuff because it just wasn't the case for me. And even when I wasn't vegan, I always hated hunting. So it must be weird growing up in that kind of culture, and I'm sure that it does probably make your ideas of all of that a little bit different because that is your normal beyond just eating corpses. You are used to people killing animals as part of your childhood or whatever, so it might be hard to break those mental associations and connotations of normality when you see it to that extent when you're younger. But I don't really know.
It wasn't like, I all of a sudden decided to do something crazy that I never thought about doing before. It's always been in the family, and it was just something that was available to that scenario that I felt was a potential option to explore.
Yeah, that's crazy. I do actually have a family member who hunts, and used to have a bunch of deer heads just everywhere in his house. And when I was a kid, I was like, that is just the creepiest thing ever. And I can't understand that. And I'm just like, I guess people came from hunting and gathering to some extent, so we had to find it somewhat normal, just from an evolutionary perspective. But it's just crazy to think like anyone would want to go that far as to like mount the heads of animals in their home. Like, that's not only just creepy, but like, is that like comforting to you, or like, oh, you're creating such a nice and homely environment? Like, I don't really get it at all. It's just I don't know, it seems kind of like psycho to me. But I guess if you just really disassociate from animals on that level and don't even consider them a living being and they're just property that you get to chop up and put on your wall, then I guess that's how you might see it. But that's just, I don't know. It's beyond me.
And then, of course, I did explore it by tagging along on my father-in-law's hunting trip because he got an offer to go hunt a reindeer, and he was gonna have some other people in the family tag along, and I was just tagging along as well to to film and to just see how that experience and that process works, and to learn how everything works in that sense, right? So
yeah, just had to tag along, had to come along and film the murder victim being murdered.
So that was like the reason behind it. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but
I followed it. So
it doesn't make sense for someone who values vegan ethics.
That was the main kind of thing that sparked the hunting, the all these ideas, right? To try to do things in a way that I felt like was a better method of doing things.
Yeah, no,
rather than just going to a factory farm or McDonald's or something.
Well, that's actually better than most people, I guess. But yeah, looking over that part, I'm like, I really would like to see someone analyze that, like the body language and everything, because I do think that some of what he's saying sounds believable, but it's just weird with him. Everything doesn't always add up with what he's saying. But in this case, it did seem like he was somewhat sincere. So, I don't know.
I want to say, though, that you did just say that you didn't say that you want to hunt and kill animals yourself, but you did indeed say that, like, word for word in the hunting announcement video. So maybe you didn't mean it, or...
just protect, like, be the protectors. We're the strong people, so why are the strongest people on this planet trying to, take advantage of innocent weaker beings. Doesn't make any sense.
To hunt and kill these animals myself, and I am looking forward to that experience.
But I guess if I said a word for word, I must have said it. So
I want you to understand what goes on in a vegan's mind when they hear an ex-vegan say, I want to hunt and kill the animals myself. Like that, like we're going to hear that
for sure.
And we're going to think that you have a desire to hunt and kill animals yourself, right?
That's kind of funny. And some people might not even get what's being said here, but basically, supposedly, Jon didn't actually want, like he didn't desire to hunt and kill the animals, but he wanted to hunt and kill the animals because he believed that he needed the nutrients. He wanted to do that rather than like support factory farming or support, going to McDonald's or anything like that. So I can see that context. I can understand that. But in the way that he says it in the video, he just sounds absolutely like bonkers and insane, especially considering he was allegedly vegan.
How did you feel on this hunting trip? I mean, was there any sort of cognitive dissonance?
Definitely barriers or things that I put in place that had an effect, but it didn't have an effect right there and then. So like I didn't feel, and because I wasn't close to it, I wasn't witnessing everything in its full experience. Like I was really far away and I couldn't see what was going on. So I didn't feel like happy or glad or anything like that. Like after the process was done, I did feel gratitude because we did something so intense. We killed a innocent animal's life to feed my family essentially, and I was just grateful for that because that was the only way I was willing to eat animals. So I felt a lot of gratitude there.
Yeah, well, I don't know how happy he was or not, but in the whole video where he's getting ready for that hunt, he seems pretty fucking happy-go-lucky, so...
I was just pointing at the sunset. Look at that. That is just amazing.
And you're about to rob someone of the ability to ever enjoy another. What a great guy.
But I think this is going to be such a cool experience, and I'm going to remember it for the rest of my life.
Hopefully he has changed, but, that's what I saw in the video, so I don't know.
But that night, my body was just like, it was like feverish. It was like, I don't know what happened that night, but it was like I was feeling really off. And I'm pretty sure that must have had something to do with it. But obviously looking back now, when I think of it, like I always tell people about when I talk about this experience that the reindeer was the most beautiful animal I've ever seen. Like the antlers with the fur and like magnificent, like amazing. So, I wouldn't be able to do it myself, man. Like there's no way.
I don't know what the laughing is there. It sounds pretty psycho. It's such a beautiful creature that we murdered. Like we ended its existence and ate it. And that's, I don't know. That's pretty freaking disgusting. And I don't know. Hopefully that's a nervous laugh. But yeah, it's weird. I don't really know. I don't really get it.
Do you think it was wrong to go and just kill that beautiful, innocent reindeer?
Well,
that's a good question.
It depends for who you're talking about. Like, I believe in everyone's right to decide what is right or wrong for them. But for me personally...
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Yes. For me personally, yeah, for sure. Because, at the time, it wasn't in my state of mind at the time. But now, understanding what was causing everything, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to clear that up. Do you understand that when there's footage of you in the past arguing against the appeal to tradition fallacy, which, by the way, I put in the Jon Venus versus Von Genus video, and then you're now coming out saying the opposite, and you're arguing with the fallacy, people are going to be like...
100%. Yeah. I think a lot of people just...
100%. And, I love that Lifting Vegan Logic just has all of the perfect questions to ask Jon.
This is kind of a broad question, but, like, what does veganism mean to you? I mean, there's a definition for it.
I like that.
What is
Sure.
it?
Yeah, for me,
That's a good question.
well, and a definition is also very open to interpretation.
Yeah,
I find a lot of times.
I don't like the
But
definition either.
yeah, exactly. To me, it just means consciously making choices that avoid suffering as much as possible. And
Avoid suffering for who? Because I mean, obviously, I would assume John is talking about the animals, but it seems like a lot of the decisions he's made are avoiding suffering for himself and his channel.
obviously, veganism is more related to animals, but I try to think of it as everything else as well, like humans and the planet, etc.
Yeah, but that's not what it's about. So how about you don't lump those things in, and you can care about all of them, and you should, but you don't need to lump that in with veganism, because that's not what veganism is about. Veganism is very specific in the scope of what it is.
So I'm just going to say real quick what it is to me, and then segue what it means to me, or use that to segue into the next question. So
Sure.
generally speaking, from like a sort of deontic rights perspective, I just think that it means that we should not be viewing animals as property, commodities, exploiting live animals for their their products, their excretions, their eggs, their whatever. So that's how I see it. And I want to ask you, do you have a genuine belief that all sentient beings shouldn't be viewed as resources or commodities for human benefit?
Now that's a definition right there. That is actually, very clear and cohesive. Whereas John's is very just wishy-washy, in my opinion.
One more question, and then you can just go into other things if you want. So what are your thoughts on just being called a liar? Are you a liar? And do you understand why people think you are a liar?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So first, I'll tackle, do I understand? Yeah, I mean, again, like just using the example that we used before with putting those two contradicting sentences together in my two different stages of life, you can easily just conclude that this guy is a liar, right? So I 100% get it. I get it. And I've seen, I think for me, that was the part that kind of hurt me the most, or the part that got me like, a little bit sad, because like everything that I've done so far has been just as an effort, like an attempt to try to be representing my true authentic self online. No matter what kind of like stage of my life it is, right? Like my son's birth or my wedding, all these things, right? So like to hear from people that everything that I did was just a scam and I was never really vegan, it hurts a little bit, because when you know the truth about yourself and you understand how hard you've worked for a certain thing, it's tough, but you just realize that as long as you know the truth and you understand that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person because you made this mistake. That's what got me to like just be okay with the whole situation. But yeah, I 100% understand. I've never lied on social media. I tried never to lie in person. I probably still do to my parents. I was always lying about how often I play video games, so I guess I still have to figure that out. But I try to be as honest as possible with everyone.
So I really want to believe that John is trying his best to be a good person, and we all go through our own struggles to try to be the best person we can be. Not everybody is trying to do that, but I think a lot of people are trying to do their best, and if John is trying his best, then maybe he'll be able to get somewhere. And he does seem like the kind of guy who maybe it's more his subconscious that leads him astray, because we all have our own issues, and it's entirely possible that he is somewhat sincere about all this and that he will make up. But all that being said, I just think that it's stupid to, quarrel about whether he's vegan or not, which I see a lot of people doing, and just recognize that by virtue of him not supporting carnism and supporting at least a plant-based diet, that's ultimately going to be better for the animals. And that's what I care about, frankly, and I think what any other vegan should be concerned with. And as far as whether he's vegan or not, who cares? You don't need to judge him on that. You can say your opinion and all that, of course, but none of that is even relevant to the animals and their circumstance. So let's try to keep our focus on the real goal here, is what I would say.
That's just all it is. And we all make mistakes and we all do stupid things. We're all stupid to some extent. So yeah, that's just, I'm just a little bit extra crazy in that sense. So.
All right, well, at least you're self-aware.
All right, guys, so that's the video and those are my thoughts. If you liked it, give it a like, consider subscribing, comment down below if you want to, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
That sounds pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
I love it.